Okay, my name is Randicia Fletcher, and I am a humanitarian, an author, and an educator.
I know there's been a handful of pieces you've written this year and a lot of community work you've done. Can you name one or two issues that you've taken a stand on this year, a public stand?
Well, I've taken a public stand on poverty and medical discrimination and social inequality as a whole.
Um, how did you do that?
Well, one article I wrote about was my experience of being in the military, and I was sexually assaulted while in service, and the ability to gain my benefits through the VA, the Veterans Administration, which has been very difficult for me in regards to maintaining my integrity and showing people that, hey, I'm injured, and I deserve to be compensated for that.
Okay, hang on for 1 second. Can you just move the hair out of your eyes? I just want to, yeah, I want to be able to see your whole face.
Okay.
What was the argument in that piece?
The argument in that piece was that I went through a trauma, and then the abuse within itself was affected me long term, and to experience that in my sleep and in my waking hours, and to go down there and still have to prove to them that I'm injured, when haven't I proved enough to them? Isn't it documented on paper? Isn't that enough? And for someone to continue to make me feel like I'm being raped all over again because I'm begging for my benefits as I was begging for my life at that time. My argument is always that take care of your veterans, take care of your wounded warriors.
What was the reaction to that piece? Did anything particular of note come your way?
Yes, I had a lot of female veterans call me and say, me too. Not only was I sexually assaulted, but I'm struggling to get my veterans benefits as well. And I go into the Veterans Administration office and they treat me like I'm a criminal, and they treat me as if my PTSD doesn't matter. My service doesn't matter. Your benefits don't matter. And so they tend to push us to the side, like our cry for help means nothing. And so many women are experiencing oppression, I believe I can say, through the VA, because of the fact it's not a concrete injury like my hand was blown off or I'm missing an eye, but I'm missing a part of my heart. I'm missing a part of my peace. I'm missing a part of my mind and my thinking and my ability to reason and to cope in everyday life because someone took something away from me, and I have to live with the nightmare of shadows every night and every day.
That I see it suddenly I see like a few like parallels in the things that you've written and the overlap. I know you mentioned you've also taken a stand on poverty and the dehumanization of low-income communities. Can you talk a little bit about what drove you to write those pieces or to take those stands, what they were?
Yes, so I grew up in Los Angeles on Skid Row. As a child, all I saw was poverty and crime and death and drugs and just indecent living. No one here in the United States should live that way. No one in the world should live that way. But I say that because so many people outside of this nation, they believe, oh, the United States is such a rich nation. And here I was seeing people murdered in front of me and seeing drugs used in front of me and being molested as a child because of drug addiction. And I write about those things to highlight the fact that there is a problem, and there's a problem here. And sometimes we make legislation where we take care of what's going on across the street but we never acknowledge our backyards. And so my goal is to highlight what's happened in the backyard. And there's people of my generation who are not very successful academically. They're not successful economically. They're broken. They're experiencing a poverty of brokenness. And when we're dealing with people who are broken, they're not equitable citizens. And so we wonder why people have not achieved all the things that they could achieve. It's because of the fact that they're broken from their childhood. Why did that happen to them as children? And so we never assess the fact of what happened then to account for why they're living this way now. And so it's really easy to point the finger and call those and thems and theys of why they are unsuccessful, but we don't take into account what happened to them then, the PTSD of their past, to bring them to the place where they are today.
I recall at maybe the first convening or second convening you spoke about, I think you were going to an event, you had a beautiful dress, and you spoke about not like feeling a sense of belonging, like in certain spaces and not in others, and not always the spaces that you felt were or had themselves proclaimed to be open.
Mm-hmm.
I was just wondering if you could say a few words on that.
I can. One of the things that I understand is that as an African American, my ancestors did not come here voluntarily. And the ones who were brought here, some of them made a conscious choice to live. Some of them made a conscious choice to die. Some of them were killed along the way. In all of that, we've never agreed on a way to protest injustice. And in that disagreement of us protesting injustice, we've created different factions within our community where we don't get along. This group is mad at this group because they protested this way or they believe it that way. So it's difficult to feel a sense of belonging, what's perceived to be your own ethnic community, when we disagree on ways to protest what we're all experiencing, and that's injustice. And so it's difficult for me to go in and feel accepted when certain people feel this way right here, when my mindset is no greater or no less than theirs. It's just I think differently, just like they think differently. And we have not learned to come together cohesively to understand each other's way in life and way to solve the problems of injustice in our nation.
So you spoke a little bit about your past and the community's past and your present. Today we're talking about legacy and all the enduring impact you wish to leave behind. And so I was wondering if you could say a little bit about what legacy means to you and what you envision for your own legacy in light of the work we're doing, mostly like here.
Well, that's a great question. Legacy means a gift. For me, my children are very important to me, and my community, my surroundings. And when I talk about my community, it's me looking at you, Chelsea, understanding that we too share something in common, and you are my community. And so understanding that we don't all agree because we don't all speak the same language. If we had some form of curriculum to teach us that we have to speak the same language in order to be progressive, I don't want my children to experience the same things that I experienced. And that may be a novel notion to say, I don't want them to suffer, but they don't have to experience bodies being thrown out of windows and addiction and the capacity coming from their mother. They don't have to experience nights where they need to walk down to the mission to eat. They don't have to experience someone in their band of brothers hanging rope nooses for lynching on the pull-up bars in your workspace. if we could just have a conversation and talk about what's just, what's equitable. And sometimes we're not always gonna agree, and sometimes life is not always equal, but we need to make it fair for at least in some capacity. And I want my children to see a different world than I saw. The legacy that I'm leaving for them is my voice, that they'll understand that my mom stood up and said something about this. And so we're going to get up and say something about this. So maybe I don't change it in this life of mine, but the life that breathes in those children, something will manifest and everything will change for them. And the life that breathes in their children will speak the same thing, that the words that come from my heart, it will speak in my children's children. And that's the legacy I will leave. It's not even a hope. It's what I will do.
How has this process changed, if it has, assuming it has, the way you understand your place in the world, or your place in your community, in the world, and in the future, like as a legacy, like your relationship to just the world now and in the future?
Well, I understand that it's important for me to use my voice. Sometimes I get embarrassed that I'm very outspoken, and I don't feel that I need to cover up my words. Sometimes I will get embarrassed about what I was saying, and I constantly, was that okay? I still ask that sometimes, but not as often. Was what I said okay? I'll feel ashamed. Like I still don't even tell people a whole lot that I've written a book. I wrote a book before I was even a part of this process. And it spoke to my past of poverty and how it affects me now and how it affects my family now. And how I can say, hey, I wrote this book. Here, you can learn a little bit about me. This is who I am right here. And every time I open my mouth, and every time I'm frustrated inside and I have that tornado and whirlwind inside of me, I know that I can put it down on paper and send it off. Someone will see it and it will be published. And so I don't wonder if my thoughts and my words are just floating into the atmosphere in vain. I know that they're used and they're understood and they're full of purpose.
How have you seen that happen this year?
How have I seen it happen this year? I've seen it happen through just like other female veterans calling me and saying, hey, me too. I've seen it through other people understanding that, oh, you grew up this way. This is why you have a passion for helping people in situational poverty. I've seen it when people get a glimpse of, oh, I've read your article. I want you to come in and do this training with us. I want you to come and teach. I want you to come and research. I want you to come and learn. I want you to understand because we want to understand you. And so it's impacted me in a way because it's opened doors and created other circles that may have come eventually, but they may have come a little bit more speedily than they would have if things just happened naturally. My voice will be heard. People are going to hear from Randicia, and I don't worry about that. Like what I say or don't like what I say. I know I say a lot of things that are very controversial, and most people won't agree with some of the things that I say, but they'll respect what I said. They're like, okay, I get it. I don't understand this point of view. I may not agree on this point of view, but I get it. Much love and respect for what you say.
2-minute warning.
Okay. I feel it. Could you read your why do you do what you, well, not read because you don't have it, but your why do you do what you do statement that just by saying the reason I do what I do is...
The reason that I do what I do is to shatter, what am I about to shatter the norms.
Can we just keep it with the why you do what you do?
Oh, sure, sorry.
Why do I do what I do?
I'm mixing things up here.
I do what I do because I want people to look at an alternative perspective. if we all keep seeing things one way, we never grow. We never change. There's never a call to action. We have to shatter those images that we're so used to having. It's just like looking through a glass. But we have to change our thought process. And we have to understand that not everybody's going to see things the way I see them. Like you may see things in a different way. But once we work together and network and share ideas and experiences, if you hear me like I hear you, then my ideas of whatever it is will change. And for me, the same thing. Once you hear me speak, once you read my writings, once you read anything that I put in place, your heart will change. Because you'll have a different understanding, an alternative perspective. And that's so important to me, that we walk with an alternative perspective to the way in which we live.
What is your call to action, your personal call to action?
Your personal call to action is just to alter the way people perceive the world.
In what way?
In what way? Through teaching about economic and social diversity in economics. And to...
That's the how.
How?
The teaching is the how, but the change that you would like to see, that you'd like to spark or prompt, what is that?
The change that I would like to see is neighborhood transformation. It's a teaching point, that we have a curriculum in place and that we're able to train the trainers and go into each community with one conversation, one language to train the families, the children, the schools, the mosques, temples, and cathedrals, so that everybody can speak the same language. And then we will have less instances of inequality, offensive languages, brutality, in so many different ways. If we could speak the same language, I think we'll have a similar heart.
Anything else?
Yeah, that was great. I just wanted to get, you said it before, but we had a guy close the door. Just legacy is a gift. I think you said that's what legacy is to you.
Mm-hmm.
Would you mind just in one sentence? I can
Love
just look
it.
at Chelsea.
Just say legacy is a gift.
Yeah, how the way, but say it the way you say it. Like legacy to me is a gift, or however you would.
Okay. Legacy to me is a gift.
That's great. That's it for me.
Alrighty.
So great.
Are we good to go?